All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Friday, July 23rd, 2021, and this is your daily tropical update. We are recording this today because we have a new invest near the coast of Florida. This is Invest 90L on your screen as we look across the Atlantic basin. The only player in town, really, the rest of the basin is extraordinarily quiet. A lot of Saharan dust, especially this plume pushing in here to the Caribbean and parts of the Western Atlantic. The Gulf of Mexico is pretty much dead silent, and we're not really seeing any significant activity off of Africa. So, really, right here at 90L, the only player in town. You can see here the old cold front this storm kind of formed on right here on the tail end. This is very common when you have a little bit of a surface trough or an upper trough right at the edge of a frontal boundary and over warm water. You can get these kind of semi-tropical systems that don't really care so much about the background state of the Atlantic, where we're in this suppressed quiet phase in the basin wide Atlantic, but then, these near shore storms, they don't care so much about what's going on in the big picture, and they can sometimes spin up. So while you've been hearing me say, oh, well, we're going to be quiet through the rest of the month, stuff like this you really can't predict in the short term, so you kind of have to just roll with them as they come. So what are we looking at today? Well, this is Invest 90L. We're going to go into the more zoomed up look here. What we have is an upper trough that's kind of dug into this area and is also sort of the same thing on the surface where you have winds out of the southwest. Down here, you have winds out of the northwest and southwest here. So you kind of have this trough, and you have a pretty significant amount of thunderstorm activity north of the Bahamas this afternoon over the Gulf Stream off the coast of Florida. You can see a lot of regular afternoon thunderstorms popping up along this belt of upwinds that are moving into the trough. But what we don't have is a closed circulation. We can see this really well by FinMOX, the ASCAT pass from earlier, which is satellite derived winds here on FinMOX, the Navy's website. And we can see pretty clearly that we have a belt of very strong winds. I mean, this is basically tropical storm force winds in the reds and yellows here along the east side of what the kind of the center would be, or the trough axis would be. But we don't have closed winds yet. We don't have surface winds closed off. You can see that the storm still has winds out of this direction here, this direction here. We don't have a nice closing off of the wind field. So what we have is half of a circulation but not the other half. So this is a trough. It's not exactly a closed low. And without that closed low pressure center, you don't really have a tropical storm. You just have a bunch of thunderstorms producing some gusty winds over the water, not organized enough yet for a tropical storm. But the Invest tag does allow the Hurricane Center to start getting more information on it, to start running stuff, getting satellite passes like this. It kind of is the first step to becoming a tropical storm. This afternoon, the Hurricane Center holds us at a 40% chance of development. You can see their outlook here. Basically expecting it to wander for the next couple days over the Gulf Stream. The good news for 90L is it is over very warm water. The Gulf Stream is a belt of very warm water that runs up the coast of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, and then kind of exits off the mid-Atlantic coast. And not only is this water warm, about 29 degrees Celsius, which is in the mid to upper 80s in terms of Fahrenheit, but it is also very deep warm water. So the storm can sit there for a couple days and still pull warm water up, even though it's not really moving. It's not really going to upwell cold water. It's going to keep hitting warm water. So it's got plenty of fuel at this point. But the problem that 90L does have is it's not in the most favorable environment when we talk about wind shear and dry air. So you can see here on the GFS mid-level relative humidity and winds map. You can see the low pressure center kind of stamped right here. And it's pretty evident to see that we have a belt of stronger winds and drier air that's kind of working in. So you can see here, this is later this afternoon, and you can see that the winds are pretty much out of the north to northwest, and they are fairly significant, about 15-20 knot winds pushing into this storm. But what's bringing with it is all these browns here, which is indicating drier mid-level air is being pushed into the storm, and that is disrupting the thunderstorm activity. We go back to the satellite here, we can see it pretty clear. You have a bunch of thunderstorms and that belt of more moist air trying to work in, but then you also have that drier air right here. And you can see here thunderstorms, like for example, this little storm here dissipates because this air is much drier and the storm is having a hard time maintaining the thunderstorms. You can also see like an outflow boundary that just rushed out from this thunderstorm up under there, once again indicating collapsing thunderstorms and drier air. So while 90L is over warm water and is trying to pull that moisture up and kind of get going, it's also fighting off that dry air from the proximity to the coast. And that's really going to help hamper it along with the wind shear. So I would expect any development of 90L to be fairly marginal or slow right now. I don't really think it's going to explode. But some of our intensity models do forecast this thing to come up a little bit, but right now I think a low-grade tropical storm at most would be like what you're going to see out of this. I don't think it has particularly a lot of time or a very good environment to really get all that strong GFS ensembles. The first stab we have at where it might go, which is basically just wandering motion for about 48 to 72 hours, and then probably some kind of turn back to the west. This kind of matches up well with the GFS upper level winds. We have right now a trough over the system and over the eastern U.S., but this trough is going to depart, and we're going to see a strong high pressure center camp out over the Tennessee Valley, and this upper wind flow going to be back out of the north and the east, and this is probably going to push whatever is of 90L at that point back over the Florida Peninsula. So probably going to expect a lot of heavy rain. We'll get the forecast for you on that. I should have had that up already. Let's see if we can pull it up real quick. But we are expecting probably a good bit of heavy rain from this. We'll go down here to Florida and we will find, yeah, Pacific total. This is the WPC's official prediction. So we'll go ahead and run this out through middle of the day on Sunday. So yeah, you can see most of the rainfall total expected right now for South and Central Florida. Rainfall totals 2 to 4 inches across parts of Miami and Broward counties and whatnot, and also some heavy rain totals across like Central Florida, like the Ocala area. And likely these will go up a little bit as the models get a better depiction of the storm. But you can see here even northern Florida, not expecting a ton of rain from this. When you're on the left side of a tropical, so the tropical system's here, most of your heavy rain is off to the east side of the storm, and then where the drier air is coming in from the north, you have less rain. So it's kind of tricky to say how much rainfall the north and east Florida region is going to get, but it's going to be, some. This will help enhance some of the thunderstorms, but it is probably going to be more hit or miss in terms of totals, whereas the more southern part of the state, as this thing kind of rotates back over, probably is going to get a much more significant amount of rainfall because of the slow movement of the storm and just the fact that it's tropical in nature still. It's pulling a lot of that moisture up. So we'll keep a close eye on this right now. Kind of a low threat to Florida. I wouldn't be running for the hills by any means, but we do have something trying to develop, and we could have, by tomorrow, if this is going in that direction, we may be having hurricane hunters go out and investigate it. We might see tropical storm watches and warnings. We see potential tropical cyclone come from this. So things could move kind of fast on this if it really kind of gets going. But right now, it looks like this wind shear and dry air should prevent it from becoming anything too significant. Let's go ahead and bounce around to the rest of the tropics, guys. This is the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. Right now, we do have an area of interest in the Eastern Pacific, kind of moving into the Central Pacific, kind of moving towards Hawaii as well. This might be Guillermo's leftovers from a couple days ago. I'm not really sure, but either way, we do have a storm that might be trying to spin back up out there. It should die off though as it approaches Hawaii. There's a lot of cooler air or cooler waters in this region as it approaches. The water temperatures kind of go like this for the warm water. So this thing will probably have a couple days of warm water, and then it'll hit cold water. And as most storms as they approach Hawaii do, will fall apart. So I wouldn't be shaking in my boots if I lived in Hawaii, but it is something to keep an eye on. Could be some more rainfall next couple days. And we go to the Western Pacific where we have a complete dumpster fire on our hands. We have the remnants of Tropical Depression Simpaka that formed near the southern coast of China. This produced very heavy rain in that region. It looks like, thankfully, this system is a remnant low. Essentially, it's no longer a named storm. We do have a tropical or a typhoon In-fa near the northern coast of Taiwan on the satellite loop here this afternoon. We still see a somewhat large and ragged typhoon here. Maximum sustained winds, I believe, are around 80 miles an hour, about 70 knots. Very ragged eye feature, and also a very large eye feature. This is definitely a storm that has suffered from some wind shear, some dry air, and it also upwelled all the warm water under it. It had warm water, but it wasn't super deep warm water, so it sat too long. It started pulling up cold water after it ran out of warm water to use as fuel, and this thing never quite achieved what we thought it might could be, which is like a category 3 or so typhoon, but it never got to that point, thankfully. And also the time it took to turn has actually turned it early. It's now expected to wrap around Taiwan and actually go into the coast of kind of central eastern China, kind of south of Shanghai, where very heavy rainfall is expected over the next couple of days in that region. You can see here the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's forecast is about a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm or typhoon moving in Shanghai here, so a little bit south of there, but this whole region will experience very heavy rainfall over the next couple of days as In-fa expected not to move very much. You can see here this is 48 hours and the storm not making it very far inland, and the large circulation will dump a ton of rain, which is going to be another flooding disaster for China that's already seen a couple of them this year. We also have one more typhoon to talk about. This is Typhoon Nipartak, I guess is how you'd say it. Also forming in the same broad monsoon gyre that spit out In-fa and Simpaka. Nipartak also looks like it's about to pop out of there and rotate up into the north and eventually the northeast. And right now is a concern for the Olympics going on in Tokyo. Maximum sustained winds right now are just 40 miles an hour and probably on the verge of tropical storm strength, and the storm will slowly organize as it comes up. Right now, the JTWC not really buying into this thing being overly strong. That's kind of what the models are thinking as well. But it could be a decent tropical storm on approach to Tokyo. Right now, showing maximum sustained winds around 50, 55 miles an hour at landfall on the 27th, which is going to be early next week. So if you're an Olympics fan, keep an eye out for that. That could delay or may have some games moved around, especially anything outdoors, and could probably produce a lot of rain for the region. So definitely not something Tokyo hasn't seen before, but could definitely be an issue while the games are going on. So anyway, guys, we got today on 90L. The rest of the tropics, we'll probably keep an eye on this through the weekend. Probably I got some time for videos over the weekend, so we'll keep a close eye on 90L and we'll see if there's any changes. As always, thanks for watching and have a good one.